What's up, guys? Tim Little. Welcome back to Tactical Bassin. Today's video, we're talking everything topwater, fall topwater fishing, favorite baits, some tips, some tricks. Let's go. Fall topwater can be overwhelming. This time of the year, as we start going into the cooler nights, we have that fall transitioning happening. That fall transition is getting those fish fired up. Water temps are cooler, weather's cooler, and the fish, the bass, are active. Topwater is my favorite way to catch them this time of year. So I have walking baits, finesse topwaters, frogs, wake baits, all sorts of stuff to cover to help simplify it for you for the types of fishery and the fish that you're going after. It doesn't matter if you're chasing spots or smallmouth or largemouth and grass. I'll have you covered with gear and baits and everything. There it is, boat topwater. Let's get started. Like I said, topwater is my favorite way to start out catching them this time of the year. If I go to a favorite fishery or a new fishery, the first rod I typically pick up is gonna be some kind of topwater. Right now, I just pulled rods out of my rod locker. I'll show you what I have rigged up from a trip yesterday. Whopper plopper. Shower blows walking bait. Don't judge me. Walking bait rover with a front runner. We're gonna talk about that here a little bit shortly. A frog. Never know if there's grass. Like I said, don't judge me. Finesse topwater. That's that Shower Blows 77 on a BFS setup. And a wake bait. Literally 6 or 7 combos specifically for topwater. Like I said, don't judge me, but it is my favorite way to catch them this time of the year. And hopefully after this video, if you're not already a topwater specialist, hopefully this will give you some confidence to kind of branch out and try these different baits. I have way too many baits lined up out here for you. I'm gonna go through them, and then later in this video, you can pick and choose which you think you can apply to your fishery, the species you're fishing for, and the area that you're fishing. So basically, I have these things broken down into, it looks like, I don't know, four or five categories. I literally just laid them out. I went through my topwater box, laid them out, and figured I would just go through, explain why I use different ones, and why I use them at all. Let's talk about that. We talked about the colder weather. We talked about the bass active. It's all about bait fish. Fish are schooling up this time of the year with those lower water temps. Those fish are really congregating and they're chasing down those bait balls and they get fired up. And what better way to catch them than them blowing up on top? So throwing a topwater, throwing a front runner, 2 baits at once, catching 2 fish at once. So much fun. We're gonna cover all of that today, but that is why you should be throwing topwater. That's why I throw it, because I can cover a lot of water. I can make, if I need to, make isolated target casts, or I can be out in open water, you know, casting long distances to schooling fish. I could be in the grass throwing some kind of buzz toad or some kind of fast moving bait. So let's start out. We'll go through the different categories. Let's jump right in. First up, walking baits. Now, I have 4 of them out here for you, and here's why. They all have different sounds. Sharp hooks. Let me get this one for you. Okay. So, I have primarily 3 main walking baits. Number 1 for me is gonna be the rover. That's been our tried and true topwater bait all across the country, if I'm throwing a full-size bait, I'm throwing the Rover. Now, I'm gonna cover this real quickly. That way I'll probably forget it later on when I'm going through the categories. I keep it fairly simple with colors in all of these. I go with some kind of chrome or bait fish, bone, or black. You don't need 100 colors in all of these categories. If you are, one exception to that, if you are fishing open water, spotted bass on clear water, some kind of ghosty chartreuse is great. And then if you're throwing a frog, you guys know that we go chartreuse, black, or white. Okay? Now, walking baits. Talked about that Rover. Again, it's all about sound. I'm not going to cover colors in all these, but chrome, some kind of bait fish, a black or a white. That Rover is money. Fairly inexpensive in the category, and it catches big ones. I'm going to include this next one because they haven't been available for a long time. I've heard through the grapevine that there's some in stock right now as I'm shooting this video, but it looks like there's more coming. But that is the Reaction Innovations Vixen. Those of you guys that are top water connoisseurs know that some of these things were selling for 60 to 80 bucks a piece online. I saw one post recently where they were selling for like 100 bucks a piece. It's crazy, but this bait straight up catches them. Just has a little bit different sound. Now, those of you guys that don't know, the walking style, it's a twitch, 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 twitch. It's going back and forth. Now, with that said, this time of year for me, it's all about speed. You cannot work a topwater bait fast enough, especially on actively feeding schooling bass. If they're blowing up, I mean, you could throw this bait out there and burn it back. I mean, they are going to miss, but they're probably gonna miss once and twice and get it the third time. You could have multiple blowups on the same cast this time of the year. So, talked about the Rover, the Vixen, the Spook. This is like probably the most well-known. The Spook is one of the original topwater walking baits, the Head and Super Spook. That's Okie Shad. That is a great color, kind of a bait fish with some chartreuse mixed in. So that checks all the boxes for me as far as colors. And then the Gunfish, the Lucky Craft Gunfish. That's another great one. They came out with the 117 this year. Kind of slendered it down, more of a pencil popper style. But those are my four. Those are my four walking baits, depending on the sound, depending on the weather, the water clarity. I'm gonna rotate through those and see which ones the fish bite. Honestly, you know, I've been on fisheries where they'll eat a Rover 10-to-1 over a Vixen. I've been on fisheries where they'll eat a Vixen 10-to-1 over a Rover. It just totally depends on the fish you're going after. With that said, I will say I've had way more luck with the Vixen for smallmouth and spotted bass, and way more luck with largemouth with the Rover, the Gunfish, and the Spook. Moving on. I don't want this video to be an hour and 10 minutes long. A really hot topic, or at least a category for me this last probably 18 months, is going to be downsized topwater walking baits. This is a 105 size shower blows. This is a Rover, full-size Rover. You see the size difference? Do it like that. A lot bigger profile. What I've noticed this last 2 years, 18 months or so, fishing has gotten seemingly more tough. You know, there's more anglers than ever before. I think in the last couple of years, there's like 10 million new anglers. So there's just added pressure, more people fishing, and that hurts the fishing sometimes, right? So you have to be able to adjust. So I've downsized. When I know that everybody around me is throwing a full-size Spook or Gunfish or Rover or Vixen, I will downsize. I'll throw the smaller Rover or a smaller tackle kick knocker. Again, it's all about sound, right? Hear that? Two completely different sounding baits. Again, I will link all these baits down below in the video description, and I will pick 2 or 3 colors that I highly recommend. So those two and the shower blows. This bait right here has been my #1 all around, most used, most fish caught in the last 18 months. That chrome shower blows, it's just money. It doesn't matter if it's a cloudy day, a sunny day, they eat it. But again, it's all about speed. This isn't where it's twitch, twitch. It's twitch, 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 twitch. And this bait is going, it's going side to side very, very quickly. Now, with that said, that last topic, I wanted to talk about 2, I guess this one can be more in the other category, but I'm gonna call these Finesse top waters. This guy right here, that's the little owner Zip and Ziggy. It's all perspective, right? Look at the size of this topwater walking bait. It is tiny, but it works great. Again, I was out fishing yesterday. The bass were on little tiny 1-inch, 2-inch bait fish. Guess what? They eat this way better than they eat this. But if I was on, say, Chickamauga, where they're chasing 3 or 4-inch gizzard shad or threadfin shad, heck, I'm gonna have a lot better luck throwing a full-size topwater bait than I will with the smaller size. So it's totally up to you, the fish that you're chasing and what they are primarily eating. All right, we talked about the Finesse little walker. One more bait I got for you. This is the Jackal PQ PQ. Those of you guys that follow the channel have probably heard me talk about this bait more than once and more than one occasion in videos. This is basically a hard, wacky rig topwater. You tie right here on the top, primarily fish this with a spinning rod, but it puts a real tight action like a shimmy on the surface, a vibration, and the fish just come unglued for it. It's like something they'd never seen before. So you hit it on slack line, you work it really quickly, and it just sends little ripples on the surface. They just come up and, I mean, no big blowups or anything. They just come up and eat it like it's a dying bait fish. So if you guys are into that finesse category, check out those two right there. All right, moving down this line, let's talk straight moving baits. Earlier, we were talking about side-to-side walking baits. Now let's talk about, we'll talk about fast-moving, straightforward baits, and then we'll talk about frogs and wake baits. Number 1 is gonna be some kind of buzz bait, right? This is a buzz bait. You stop reeling, it sinks. 2 big metal blades on there, lots of commotion, lots of sound. This is primarily a largemouth bait. This is a bait that I like to fish around grass lines. This is a bait that I like to fish around things. It's not a bait I'm gonna throw on a highland reservoir out off of a main lake point over 150 feet of water where I would throw a walking bait, okay? However, the whopper plopper. Those of you guys that don't know what a whopper plopper is, it's a floating bait, so if you stop reeling, it doesn't sink, it stays on the surface. But when you reel it, this little soft paddle back here rotates and plop, 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 makes a really nice sound. Now, this is a scaled down version. This is the 110 size, and this is the 90. It also comes in a 130. See if I even have one in here. Again, don't judge me. That's the 130. This is more your largemouth. This is gonna be more of your spots and smallmouth. Again, it's all about the bait fish that you're trying to mimic. You can see the color there. Chrome works really good when they are eating threadfin, little silver sides, that sort of stuff. But the whopper plopper, it's a super easy bait to throw. You know, like I said, the buzz bait, you're probably gonna have to throw some technique specific, some a rod and a reel specifically for a buzzbait, where a whopper plopper, you can get away with your favorite jig rod, you can even throw this on a spinning rod, a medium action or a medium power, fast action spinning rod, you can throw this on. But again, the whopper plopper, you throw it out, plop, 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 plop. You guys get the, you guys understand how those work. So again, those aren't changing any direction. They're just coming straight to you. Now, the faster you go, you will hear the sound. It'll kind of blow out the sound. You want that real plop, 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 plop sound. You will hear it when you're fishing it at the right cadence. Let's talk real quickly about these guys. If you're a guy that likes to just cast and retrieve, you don't have to sit there and walk these baits. You know, walking baits, these little guys, you have to either shake or walk, 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 walk. That bait's going side to side. It takes a lot of movement in your forearm, your elbow, your wrist, your shoulder. With, like the whopper plopper, if you just want to cast and reel but give the fish something that they probably haven't seen as often as a whopper plopper, this is a little tiny wake bait. This is called the Mikey Jr. Again, this is just that's a 3 or 4 inch wake bait that the spots and smallmouth and largemouth just munch. Again, it's just cast out and it's just reeled it back. This thing stays on the surface, has a bill on the front, creates a nice V on the surface, a nice wake, and they come unglued for that guy right there. And another one, this is a multi-joint bait. See that? Multi-joint. This is a solid bait, but has great sound. Nice one-knocker sound. This is the iJack by Megabass. So no joint, but it's also a topwater bait that you cast out and reel back with that bill on there. It dives just a little bit, and again, a great wake on the surface, great sound, but you can move it quickly. Now, I talked a little bit about speed kills. Again, these are schooling fish. They are fired up, but sometimes they're not. You could be out, let's say, a Highland Reservoir fishing a main lake point. You see your fish down there, they're in 20 feet. You're throwing a Nico rig, you're throwing a drop shot, you're throwing a jig, you're throwing a finesse swim bait. All of a sudden, and all heck breaks loose. This is when you have to be on your game. You have to drop your rod. I keep a topwater. If I'm not currently fishing a topwater, I keep one cocked and loaded, ready to go at all times. So I will literally have this bait hanging off of the front of the boat, ready. So if that happens, that scenario that I just laid out for you, they come up schooling, I drop my finesse swim bait, my drop shot, whatever, I'm slow fishing, I pick this thing out and I pick this thing up and I fire out there. I have to get whatever bait I am throwing in that school as quickly as possible. And I'm not exaggerating. I have had fish come out of the water and eat my bait before it even touches the water. They are in a feeding frenzy. I like to throw stuff that mimics what they are eating. So again, it's really important to have this thing cocked and loaded and ready to be make a precise, accurate cast when those fish start blowing up. A little bit different scenario. Let's say it's not 20 or 30 fish coming up and foaming and blowing up all at once. Say it's one bass coming up and you see that trout skipping, or you see that skipjack skipping or threadfin, whatever it may be. If you see that fish get that bait, 9 times out of 10, you won't catch that fish on your cast. That bass is locked in on that single bait. Once it eats it, it's gone. Where it's so much fun, and what is highly addictive during this time of the year is when those fish come up and yeah, maybe that one bass does get that one bait, but the 20 or 30 friends are schooling up around them, and it's so fun. You can catch sometimes 2 fish at once on a single bait. With that said, let's talk about a front runner. Those of you guys that don't know what a front runner is, this one's actually made by PH Customs. I will link it down below in the video description. I tie my main line to the front of that. Then I tie about a 10-inch leader to my walking bait. Okay, you see that? So what this bait is doing, and what this bait allows me to do when I'm walking this like my normal, too many lines going on. When I'm walking this like my normal topwater bait, it's going opposite of my topwater, so it mimics this chasing this, right? But what's cool, in that scenario that I painted for you guys, they come up, 20 fish blowing up. You throw this front runner out there, more often than not, you can catch a second fish on that front runner. So if you're in a tournament situation or you're fun fishing, whatever it may be, and you want to try and catch 2 fish at once, 2 options. You can throw the donkey rig, that fluke double fluke rig, or you can throw a topwater bait with a front runner. That is so much fun. And you don't have to change anything with your gear. All you do is tie that thing to your main line and then tie a little bit of a leader. You'll have to play with the leader length depending on the size of the main topwater that you're throwing. But other than that, it's same, twitch, 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 twitch. You can do the twitch, 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 but this one a little bit slower because it is doing that double action. If you guys haven't already, check out that front runner and play around with it at your favorite topwater fishery. All right, we talked about a whole bunch of baits. 2 more categories. Well, 1 more category, and then we'll talk about some largemouth grass baits. Next up for me is going to be some kind of popper, okay? See that right there? That is the World Pop by Shimano. You see all that flash? That's literally a piece of foil suspended in that bait, producing secondary action. So even if you're not moving that bait is just sitting on the surface. That foil is flashing like scales would. The other topwater popper I like to throw, that's the Pop Max by Megabass. These are my 2 favorite poppers the last few years, okay? Totally depends on doesn't matter which one I start with. I always have both. If the fish are really keying in on smaller bait, that's when I go with the Pop X. Same great Megabass colors, just a lot smaller popper. Now, where do I pick a popper versus a whopper plopper versus a walking bait? Walking baits, ploppers, they are made to cover distance, side to side and coming to you. The popper, you pick that single dock piling, you pick that single piece of cover. Maybe it's a point on a shade line, or maybe it's a main lake point, but you want to work a bait slow. You fire that thing out there, or you cast, you make a good cast to that shade line, bloop, 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 bloop. It's just a more subtle presentation, and it has its time. Early mornings, slick, calm, quiet. Maybe there's a little bit of fog on the water. You don't need to be ripping through there with a whopper plopper, right? Or a big, loud double buzz. You might need to be subtle. So that's why I have the poppers. Now, let's talk about grass. So all of these baits can be fished around or along grass lines. Some of these open water baits, they're gonna shine, some of these walking baits are gonna shine in open water, and then some of these other baits are gonna shine in grass. So let's talk about frog fishing. How do you do a fall topwater video without at least mentioning some kind of frog? Those of you guys that know or have followed the channel for a long time, you guys know that that is by far our favorite frog. That's the Bullywah 2 in the little Allen color. That's a color that Matt and I designed. You can see that chartreuse belly. This time of the year, A lot of times your water levels are receding. They're dropping a little bit. So that grass is really up on the surface. So you're coming along that sparse grass or that grass line, that bullywah too, again, twitch, 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 twitch. It's walking like your favorite topwater bait, okay? It's walking side to side. What's cool about the frog is you can throw it into the thickest, gnarliest stuff and don't have to worry about getting hung up, right? But when you do get bit, you got two massive hooks back there just to jack that fish. You're throwing it on straight braid. You're getting that fish out of here. Again, I'm not gonna go into gear on this right now. I'll link my favorite stuff down below in the video description, but just know the 7.3 Extra Heavy X-Bride is by far Matt and I's favorite rod out of all the frog rods we've ever used. But the benefit of throwing the frog is you can throw it into that thick, gnarly stuff. Now, if you are a frog fisherman or a grass fisherman, you're probably licking your chops coming into fall with these cooler nights, fishing mats, fishing grass. I really break it down into, well, really there's probably 4 categories of frogs, but I'm gonna try and simplify it for you. Your basic walking frog, again, chartreuse, white or black, or a version of. Some kind of quick moving frog, some kind of toad like a horny toad. That Spro flapping frog they just came out with is great. It's a bait that floats. The horny toad sinks, right? You let off this just like the buzz bait, it's gonna sink. It's gonna go below the surface. You let off this teckle, it's not, it's gonna float. This is your weedless whopper plopper. So those of you guys that love throwing a whopper plopper and now you're around grass, maybe you're a bank fisherman or a pond fisherman, check out this guy. This is the Sprinkler Frog by Tackle. Again, it is your weedless whopper plopper. More subtle, quick moving bait. Go with some kind of your favorite toads. This is the horny toad. I'll link my favorite toads down below in the video description, but just know that this bait will sink just like the buzz bait if you let off. Where this bait shines, it's a lot more subtle than this bait. So say you have little tiny bait fish just flickering the surface, just spitting and flickering. That's where these little feet aren't gonna overwhelm or be too loud for the situation that you're fishing. And then some kind of popping frog. Say you're up on the cheese, on the mat, real thick grass. We got a real heavy wind today, so you guys can't see this grass out here. There's a bunch out here, but you're up on the grass. You can go with some kind of popping faced frog that's gonna spit. It's gonna move a ton of water. You can walk it back and forth, but some kind of popping frog. This is that new one by Spro. And this is the Jackal Gavacho, more of a finesse poppin' frog. Speaking of finesse, if you find yourself in this situation where you need to downsize, but you are around grass, check out this little guy. This is the Jackal Kyara. Look at that compared to a full-size frog. It is quite a bit smaller. Sorry guys, got some shadow going on here. Got the sun setting. Had a thunderstorm roll through, it was all cloudy. That's why I decided to do this video in the parking lot instead of out on the water, but you live, you learn, right? Tennessee weather changes every 17 minutes. So there is the frogs. Now, last but not least, I always, this time of the year, have a wake bait tied on. Now, you big swim bait fishermen, you big topwater fishermen, you guys know the value of having some kind of big, large presence on the surface. Early morning, late evening, low light conditions, or even high noon on dock lines, on shade lines, there's something to be said about throwing a big, lazy, dumb meal. The largemouth spots and smallmouth absolutely love that. Again, it's gonna take technique specific gear, swim bait rod, swim bait reel, braid deleter. Again, I'll link that stuff down below. One tip, 2 tips. One I've already talked about. You cannot go fast enough with your walking baits. Again, if you're throwing a whopper plopper, don't go so fast that it sounds like a jet taking off or a prop airplane taking off at the runway, right? You want that nice deep plop, 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 plop. You don't want to, you don't want to overdo it, okay? With that said, on the walking baits, twitch, 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 twitch. Twitch, 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 twitch. Pause. Twitch, 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 twitch. Get that thing going side to side. That's what's so special about the Zip and Ziggy. It's a real tight action walker versus something like a Spooked. It's a real side to side to side to side. But again, you can get real aggressive and erratic with your twitch, 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 twitch. Get that thing going. Number 2, those of you guys that like to make a cast, make a bad cast, and you're reeling in your bait, reel in your bait a little bit and pause. I can't tell you how many fish this time of the year I have caught burning my bait back to the boat. I think I messed the cast. I think I messed up something. I'm burning that bait back, and halfway to the boat, I get blowed up on. Schooled up. How's it going? Time out. GoPro. Yes, sir. What's that? Oh, nice. What's your name? Nice to meet you, James. I'll be done in just a second. Appreciate you, bud. Subscriber. Even if you think you've made a bad cast and you are burning your bait back to the boat, try to start training yourself to give yourself a little bit of a pause. Like I said, so many fish I've caught thinking I messed up my cast, or I made a bad cast, or I'm gonna cast somewhere else. I'm not even looking, and then they eat the bait. Again, you cannot go too fast this time of the year, especially around schooling fish. But guys, hopefully you guys have seen the sickness. Fall topwater fishing can be some of the best topwater fishing of the entire year. It doesn't matter if you're throwing big wake baits around grass for largemouth, or throwing little tiny finesse topwaters on a spinning rod. You can do all of it depending on if you're chasing clear water smallmouth or spots, or dirty water largemouth. It doesn't matter. One of these baits, probably a few of these baits, you can apply to your fishing. Don't be afraid to try these baits. If you have any questions, leave those down below in the comment section. I will try to get to those and help you out as soon as possible. But depending on the situation, is it early morning, clear, quiet, or is there a storm coming in? There's thunder, lightning, whatever. Well, if there's lightning, get off the water, but there's thunder. Go with your whopper plopper. Go with your loud walking baits. You can get away with loud. Starts getting real subtle, no ripple, no wind. Go with something more finessey, okay? Go with something more finessey, but hopefully there's enough baits here that, given the right time of day and your situation, the species you're going after, there are baits here that will catch you fish this fall. Like I said before, guys, if you have any comments, leave those down below, or questions, leave those down below in the comment section. I will try to get to those as soon as possible. As always, guys, thanks for watching. If you learned something from this video, give us a like, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you on the next video. Thank you, sir.